Back, everybody. It's been a year since I started my YouTube channel, and I'm not going to get all bubbly, but I figured I started the channel with coaster list. I'm going to do the final wooden roller coaster list right here. So almost every single wooden coaster I haven't already listed. So I already did CCIs, PTCs, DINs, and a few others. So let's just crack it right off here. We got Antelope at Gulliver's Warrington by Owlet and Lomax. Never quite heard of them. This is their only coaster, but they designed some other coasters. So like this is the only coaster that they built themselves. Constructed, designed everything. But they also designed those two rides there. It doesn't look to be very good or anything. Not much airtime, but it's a pretty unique ride. The last wooden coaster built, or no, second to last wooden coaster built in England. Or in the UK. That is. So yeah, there you go. And next up, we have the Hopkins and Pierce Wild Mice. There's two of them still operating. There's the one in Indonesia and there's another in Sydney, Australia. So there you go. They were actually really, really good rides. Like some probably better than the steel Wild Mice out there. So yeah, there you go. Next up is the memeiest coaster of all time, Autobergbahn. Very, very intriguing ride. I know Blob Alvy's daughter took a photo or a point of view of this, and it's a pretty cool ride, pretty historic and interesting trains, to say the least. So there you go. They should probably replace those trains with some Timberliners. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, next up, Big Dipper at Camden Park. Now, this has a not really any air. Sorry, I'm totally wrong. I think the first or second drop, there's a really, really sick airtime moment in the back of the train, so that's cool. But this is trimmed tightly, so like after that moment, there's not much else. But still a pretty cool ride. It's by National Amusement Device. They made a few coasters over the years, just not a whole lot. This is one of their biggest projects ever. So yeah, and it's also at West Virginia's only park, so that's nifty. And then the other Big Dipper at Blackpool, it's kind of like a Thunderbolt at Kennywood with less laterals, so it's like not much airtime or anything. So kind of a boring ride, but it's historic and everything, so that's kind of cool. Next up, Blue Streak, not the one at Cedar Point, the one at Conneaut Lake in western Pennsylvania. It's a pretty alright ride, but it looks to be very rough. I've heard not that great of things, but I know it has some airtime, some laterals, some decent stuff, so that's cool. And I think a few years ago it was recently restored by some company or something, so it looks pretty alright. It also looks super shady. Like you go through the woods and there's it's shady, man. I don't know. Anyway, classic coaster. This coaster only operates I don't know, a few weeks out of the year in September at the Washington State Fair. It's got some air though. I know David J. Ellis has a point of view of this, and it's pretty alright, but it's quite old actually for a fair coaster. So it's cool that it's still running very smoothly and everything. So that's good to see. Next up, a coaster that you better have freaking heard of by now. Coaster at Playland. Insane ride, insane airtime, insane low laterals. Those final turns there, just insane. This thing is so underrated and deserves all the praise. I cannot wait to get out to Vancouver and ride this thing. You see it, honestly. I say it's like top 10 wooden coaster in the world for sure. So yeah, pretty sick, pretty sick. And then a real step down is Coastersaurus by basically Gravity Group. It's a family coaster. Oh, and I did say what park this was from. This is at Legoland, Florida, so pretty interesting. And I know a few years ago, probably like 2013, GCI added their Mini Millennium Flyers. They're the first like mini GCI trains. And now I think they're on Tomahawk at Portaventura as well, so that's some interesting trivia there for you. So yeah, Coastersaurus, a somewhat memey ride. Then another Wild Mouse, wooden Wild Mouse, crazy car coaster. Not much knows, like nobody knows anything about this ride. I mean, some people have ridden it, but we just don't know who made it, when it was opened. I don't even know where Wasati Bahari Lamangan is, but yeah, that's crazy car coaster. And then somehow I skipped this on my Gravity Group video, but here's Chulainn. Totally awesome looking Gravity Group, some insane double ups, double downs, banks. Looks great. Definitely top 20 wooden coaster in the world to me. Just I've heard it's still pretty smooth. It's got a few tunnels, I think, and just a sick looking ride. What else can you say? Next, Lakeside Cyclone. It's at Denver, believe it or not. This Woody. Lakeside Park. It's a park that only operates at night, which is interesting. But it looks like a pretty decent ride. Like as you can see there, the turn inside of the turn probably has some pretty darn good laterals and some air around there too. So that's pretty sick. And then the famous Luna Park Cyclone, Coney Island. You've probably heard of this. Yeah, but I've heard it's got I know it's got like the couch restraints and a lot of room, which allows for a lot of airtime. But at the same time, it's a very, very rough ride, and the laterals are quite strong. So, not the greatest ride ever, but still very cool that you can still ride it and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's cool. And then the other Cyclone out in India with the orange color scheme. Oh man, that is awesome. And actually, I'd say this is a rather underrated ride. It looks to have a few airtime pops, like solid ones. Like this is not a kiddie coaster like the other Indian coaster that I'll end off this list with. Still a very cool looking ride, cool PTC, nice trains there. Yeah, it's interesting that India got a few woodies in the early 2000s. Pretty intriguing. So yeah, there you go. And here's the new big old GCI for the year out in China, Happy Valley Chengdu. It's about 100 feet tall, and it looks like kind of like a Woden, except not Woden, but still very good. And nobody's even mentioned it yet, so it's good that it can be on this list. So cool. Now here's Devil's Den. It's really just a dark ride with like a few roller coaster parts. Like pictured here is the only coaster part of the ride. So yeah, that's Devil's Den. And then here's Dragon Coaster at Ride Playland, and there's some guys walking up the lift. That's pretty sick. The best part of the ride is when you get an airtime pop as you rise into the mouth of that dragon. So that's pretty sick. Yeah, so it's just a historic ride north of New York City. So that's cool. The next up's Flying Turns at Knoebel, is the only wooden bobsled coaster in operation. So that's pretty nifty. But aside from that, it's a pretty tame ride. Really just a family coaster. But it also took like 8 years to open, so that's kind of funny. Yeah, still a cool ride. Now here's Giant Dipper at Belmont Park in San Diego. It's got horrible trains, but a pretty cool layout. A lot of laterals, kind of intense. Not much airtime though, so it's still a cool looking ride. So yeah, historic and all that nonsense. And I've ridden this coaster, Santa Cruz, Giant Dipper, and I rode back row and I got no airtime. So there you go. But the laterals were pretty alright. It was pretty smooth as well. I've heard it's got a lot better air in the front seat. So there you go. Now here's Grand National at Blackpool. It's a classic dueling coaster. I think there's a double down somewhere in there. So it's got some air for sure. But aside from that, there's not much else to look forward to on this coaster besides like the cool racing elements. And so that's cool. And here's Haunted House with a W instead of a U. At Camden Park, the only park in West Virginia, made again by Pretzel Amusement Company. And it's a dark ride roller coaster sort of hybrid thing, whatever. So that's cool too. Now here's Hochschaubahn at Wiener Prater, a side friction with a brakeman. A brakeman is a man who will control the speed of the coaster if it's going too quickly. So that's kind of cool that they still have this from when it opened in 1950. So that's cool. And now here's Hurler. You've definitely heard of this ride. It's made by International Coasters Incorporated, the only two coasters they ever made. Known for being a rather rough ride and not the best at all. Not much air, but we all know that the King's Dominion one is getting RMC for next year, so that's pretty dope. And here's Jackrabbit at Kennywood, which is notorious for its insane double down. Yeah, in the back row on this ride, you just get pulled down by that double down. Must be awesome. But that's about it. Like the rest of the ride is pretty tame. It's just a cool terrain coaster that looks like a lot of fun. So yeah. And here's the other Jackrabbit that nobody's ever talked about up in Seabreeze in like I don't know Rochester. Yeah, Rochester, New York. That's pretty cool. It's got some terrain elements as well. So some nice air. It appears a few decent turns, but got those Morgan trains, so not much to love there, I don't think. But I don't know. I mean, correct me in the comments. Here's Kiddie Coaster at Playland. Adults cannot ride, but I think there's an ACE event that either already happened or is happening where they will allow adults on the ride to get the credit. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, aside from that, it's a very boring little kiddie coaster that's also wooden. That's not with Hockey Express, so that's unique, I guess. Here's Legend at Arnold's Park in Iowa. That's right, Northwest Iowa has a park, and they have this little, it's not really little, but a wooden coaster by the name of Legend. And I think in 2014, GCI came in and rechecked the last part of the ride, so now it's got some decent airtime, I think. But aside from that, I mean, it's a short ride. Not a lot to love here, but it's cool for a park in Iowa to have it, so that's sweet. And here's Lil Dipper at Camden Park. Not little, but Lil. That's right. Again, made by National Amusement Device, the same people who made Big Dipper, the only park in West Virginia. So there you go. Fun. And here's Mammut at Tripsdrill out in Germany. It's the only coaster made by this company. It's basically a knockoff GCI. Probably not as good as GCI. The pacing doesn't look that great towards the end, but it's got a cool tunnel and, you know, all that cool stuff. So that's sweet. And next up's Mind Blower at Fun Spot America. Opened this year. You guys have heard of it. I've heard it's already kind of rough, which stinks, but it's got that cool inversion, some cool trains. Just a very fun looking ride. A lot of airtime, cool turns, and, you know, fun. And next up is Montaña Rusa, which is actually the longest coaster in the world. Wait, longer than Video. Longer than Beast. That's what I meant to say there. Because it's a Mobius loop coaster, so it's just one track the entire way. Like, you know, it's a racing coaster, but yeah, so it's 8,000 feet long, which makes it longer than the Beast, which is like 78 or something like that. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, this is in Mexico City. You've probably seen a video of this, so that's cool. Next up's Nickelodeon Streak at Blackpool. Not much to say here. It's really a kiddie woody with trains I've never seen before. I really don't even know who made those trains. Can somebody say something in the comments? That's pretty intriguing. Next, Racer at Kennywood. Another Mobius loop coaster, but nowhere near as long as Beast. This is about 4,500 feet long, both tracks, so that's cool. But still a cool racing coaster. Not much airtime or laterals at all, really, I've heard. But still cool. Everybody loves a classic coaster, especially if it's racing, so that's cool. All right, next up is it's just called a roller coaster. I've heard this thing's burned down a few times. Like parts of the layout have burned down because it's like in the parking lot and probably just succumbs to nature a whole lot. But I've heard this has some airtime. It's got, you know, a very cool little old layout. I know it's got a double down in there too, so that's pretty cool. But aside from that, just a rather rough ride with a few pops of air, so that's cool. That's cool is the theme of today's episode. Now, another coaster by the title of a roller coaster is at Great Yarmouth Pleasure Beach out in England or the UK, and this also has a brakeman, so that's pretty cool. It's a side friction, so classic coaster. Now here's Hochschaubahn out in Tivoli Gardens in the middle of Copenhagen, Denmark. It's another brakeman coaster, so that's pretty cool. It's also got some pretty cool theming and a few pops of air, I've heard, so that's nifty. And here's another Hochschaubahn, and opened in 1932 out in Bakken, like about an hour north of Tivoli. So that's pretty cool. Another side friction, but this one does not have the brakeman, so that stinks. Now here's Scenic Railway at Dreamland. I don't think this has a brakeman either, but still another cool ride. It has a few pops of air. Cool looking trains as well, so that's fun. Also, I think this one was like very recently refurbished. Like they completely redid this whole ride, so that's cool to see, like, you know, the old style coaster in like using new methods of building and all that, so that's cool. And next up's Teddy Bear, the best ride, the best name for any ride ever. Also the coolest train ever. So it's at Strickers Grove, the park that only opens to the public a few times a year, so that's cool. It's also, I think, the newest kiddie wooden coaster ever, I think, so that's cool. All right, here's Thunderbolt at Kennywood. Not a lot of airtime, but a very terrain-based, cool lateral wooden coaster. Like after that drop there, there's a nice sweeping turn where you pull a lot of laterals. So that's pretty sick. And here's the other Thunderbolt out in New England. It's got some air, it's got a double down, but aside from that, it's a very generic, classic wooden coaster. So, but it's cool to see it still operating. So, props to you, Six Flags, for maintaining your rides. Now here's Timber at Wallaby Rhone Alps out in France. It's a gravity group I did not mention in my video. Oops. It's basically Wooden Warrior, except bigger and better. It's like 60 feet tall instead of Wooden Warrior's like 35. So it's got a little bit more air, a little bit longer ride, but still a mini gravity group. So cool ride. All right, Twister 2 at Illich Gardens. A very interesting layout, but not a very good one. It's trimmed a whole bunch. Probably got some laterals, but not much air at all. Just kind of a POS kind of ride, you know what I'm saying? Piece of shit. So here's Tyrolean Tub Twist at Joyland Children's Fun Park out in England. It's the final wooden spinning coaster ever. That's right, this thing spins apparently, so that's pretty cool. It's like the Virginia Real Style coasters found on RCT3, so that's cool. And here's Viper at Six Flags Great America, the only coaster built in-house by Six Flags, so that's cool. It's just the generic Cyclone layout, but I've heard this has some pretty nice air. It's got a double down that you can see on the right side of the image. So a cool ride for sure, underrated I'd say. Probably better than American Eagle at the same park. So there you go. Now here's Vuoristorata. That's right. I know how to pronounce things. That's probably still wrong, but it's at Litamaki out in Finland. It's on the side friction, and this one does have the brakeman, so that's cool. And here's Wildcat at Frontier City, a coaster that nobody ever talks about with good reason. It goes out into the woods, which is cool, and it's pretty much the only good part of the ride, considering the rest of it has no airtime or laterals or anything good. So that stinks. And the other Wildcat is at Lake Compounds, and is not even open right now because the park is being super lazy, and GCI still hasn't opened up the ride with the new trains. I think Martin and Fleming's retracked the ride, and GCI is putting the trains on it, but close enough. It's just used to be a pretty terrible, rough ride, completely overshadowed by Boulder Dash in the same park, but still a very cool ride and very old. So it kind of stinks that they actually took out so much of the lift hill to replace it. So yeah. And here's the last Wild Mouse at Blackpool. Another really just insane fun ride. Strong laterals and just really cool. Also, I love the actual mice on the side of the on the coaster there. That's great. And the last coaster I will ever list, the last wooden coaster ever, is at Esso World. Zipper Dipper, my boy. Really just a kiddie woody, and man, it sucks. TPR has a point of view of it, but it's horrible. So anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. Thanks for enjoying my channel and all that. And 130 subscribers, and that's great. I don't really thank you guys all that much. I enjoy interacting with everybody and talking about coasters. So thanks so much. See you guys later.